morning, Chandigarh. So nice to see you all. I would take you back to the year 2002. 22 years back, a young person rather gets through the Union Public Service Commission and joins the Indian Civil Services. And today, I'm here 22 years hence to deliver a talk on role of public services in nation building. And why did I take you back 20 years? It's because the aspiration of a person who has not yet joined the services, the idealism of a person who has just joined the services, and an aspiration of a definition of nation building. And 20 years hence, I stand here with my reflections, my experiences on what public servant can contribute to nation building. It's a very heavy word, nation building. It comes with an onus of cohesion. To create a nation requires togetherness, and for that togetherness, the governance works with the community. And a nation is the reflection of us all. It's not just one person, it is each one of you who is present here in this room. Now, what role still does a public servant plays? And what has been my experience? I would also like to take you through a couple of more words here. The words like social stability, rule of law. I would like you to also reflect on industry, finance, economic development, welfare of citizens, crisis management, and whatnot. And the governance is all about this in a certain periphery, almost like this circle that we perform bound by certain rules, procedures, and that's where we still strive to come up with a nation which we all can be proud of, we want to be associated with, we want to carry the identity of. Very early on, and I'm glad that I can share my experiences in 3 layers with you. One, I joined as a member of the Indian Police Service, but during my career, I got opportunities and opportunities galore to be part of the civil departments as well. And I had a significant tenure with the United Nations. So I'm going to talk about governance from a multi-agency point of view, the governance when it's a police officer, and governance when you talk of a civil department. My days with the police were interesting and at the same time boring. Why? And this idea of boring, because Sikkim was an extremely peaceful state. And what's an idea of a young 22-year-old person? I would want to do a dhai, catch a goon, come in contact with terrorism incidents, because all the laurels in this country is all about the panache that a police officer, all our movies show a police officer not a community development officer, but as somebody who is, shooting around. So when I joined Sikkim, it was a peaceful foray. Everybody was happy. So the way you have Sukhna, Sikkim is actually called as Sukhim, Happy Himalayas. It was relatively a crime-free state, and here I was hoping to do something extraordinary. Like any young person, at the age of 22, you have a very romantic idea of life. And I'm sure each one of you who has spent 20 years of being in any position, any work, any foray would identify with that thought. And then when I went for my first subdivisional posting, I realized that despite peace, there was something which was lacking, and that was this idea of entrepreneurship, the idea of economic development by using the local resources, and the idea of skilling. Now, I am a police officer looking at a gap in the state which doesn't juxtapose against the role which is defined for a police officer. Here, I would take the credit that I stepped out of my comfort zone and I expressed it to the political leadership that I would like to support the state with some of these interventions which can probably change the lookout of the youth of Sikkim. I was very lucky, and I would also like to comment the political leadership of the time which allowed me to take civil posting. And that's how I moved from police to the civil department, and I worked for three critical areas. First, I contributed to skilling. That was the time when Indian government was also working on skill development. Two, I also got an opportunity to work for a tea estate. Now, it's an interesting thing for a police officer to be managing director of an organic tea garden and work in a tea space. And third, to come up with industry which looks beyond the obvious charter of a context of a state. Now, Sikkim has a lot of natural resources. It is a tourism-heavy, tourism-centric state. And the idea of rehabilitation in the mainstream India is around sectors like papad, achar, badi. And that's where I felt that the whole economic recovery, economic rehabilitation in a state where dignity has a definition which is style, which is equality, social equity, and egalitarian. And why do I use these words? Sikkim is an egalitarian state. You would not find the differentiations that you find in many other states. And I would like to again appreciate that society for bringing egalitarianism. And I, coming from central part of India, had a lot to learn from them. Having said that, I moved from skilling to the tea estate, and now I will like to express a story which is between these two spaces. So I found that there was a lot of unemployment in the state, but the skill set that we were bringing to Sikkim were again around stitching, the sectors which would not enthuse a Sikkimese youth. There was a photograph of mine which was shown with a red color hair. Normally, you wouldn't find government officers to be, in hair color like that. But Sikkim, to be one with them, you have to be part of, how they perceive an officer. And I started mingling with the youth, and this was a transformation in terms of, how I had to also, come and akin with them. So on the skilling front, we opened the avenues which would interest them. So the most traditional avenue for Sikkim was hospitality sector, of course, because of tourism and hospitality. Airlines, because of the general attributes of how an air hostess or air crew member should look. And number three was their interest in entertainment, music, and gaming. And this is one sector that we opened for them. We worked on bringing the sectors that were of interest to them, and we established the first MSME unit of training, which was around gaming and animation. And why I use this is because traditionally, Government of India was only focusing on bamboo manufacturing, unit for traditional cloth making, or things which were not of interest to a youngster of the times. And we got the first unit of animation, and that too not in Gangtok, which is the capital. We got it in a tea estate. Now, I would like you all to imagine a tea estate, which again, because of the movies, you might think of a beautiful tea plantation, but think of 700 workers who carry the ladle on themselves, pluck the teas, and have zero career progression. They cannot move beyond being a tea plucker. Beautiful weather, beautiful people, the tea is selling well, they're getting their wages, not even the word salary, wages, but there's no aspiration around what can be more and what their children can do better. There's a set thinking that after I become old, my son or my daughter will also become a tea plucker. And hardly is there any imagination, that what's happening in other parts of the country, other parts of the world, what's happening in Chandigarh, they're oblivious of it. It's a remote state, a beautiful state, a peaceful state, but oblivious. So we had to bring in people from outside to talk to them, especially women. Tea industry is a women labor extensive industry, and because there is a stability and security around that, after the mother, the daughter will get, after the mother, the son will get, largely women. So after the mother, the daughter is the set concept, would get the tea plucker's job. They're not bothered about an exposure, a training, and looking at what else can happen. So we merged the skilling with the tea estate, and I would like to mention that a tea garden which had a footfall, and you can check this with the evidences available, from an annual 10,000 footfall has today become, during the season, close to 1 lakh people coming to the tea estate. Tea tasting became part of it, and we trained these girls to do the tea tasting profile. We helped them learn how the Japanese serve the tea, how a tea ceremony is done, and we also skilled them in creating artifacts around tea, how they can have tourism within the tea estate. We also came up with a resort in the tea garden. So a lot of infrastructure, soft component, training, confidence building, and speaking English. Spoken language training was also given. So what am I trying to tell you with this? It is about the opportunity that a public servant gets. An opportunity to influence plethora of sectors and a huge number of lives, where with one policy you can change or impact or influence the future of many. And when you do that change, you have to be very, very mindful that it is cohesive. It brings social equity. It allows, so again, I know that you are all very well educated. You know what is social equity. You also understand gender. But having lived in the northern part of the country, I still feel that, no harm in giving a little input on a gender lens. Often, and not this gathering, but often, I have come across even youngsters who consider gender as men and women. It's a sexual understanding of biological differentiation between men and women. No. Gender is a social construct. A gender definition means, in a given community, in a given social context, what are the opportunities and challenges a girl and a boy faces? What are the role expectation from a woman? What is the role expectation from the men? So we became progressive, We allowed, which is a connotation I would not prefer, but yes, we allowed women to go to the offices, become professionals, but we also continued that she is the bearer also of the household work. And this gender expectation continued. It's now we see a lot of change where men are also contributing. So the things are not pessimistic. I'm just saying that it is taking time. It takes time for a social transformation. And gender based transformation takes even more time, especially in the patriarchal setup, where by mainstreaming the concept of dignity, by mainstreaming the concept of empowerment, because we are working with a, a multitude of stakeholders, and with each stakeholder, the governance gets to learn a lot. I would also mention that, here are present some of the esteemed speakers who have co-jointly worked with several government departments. They have been part of the government consultations, and they would vouch for it. It is not one person, it's not a team of few, it takes a lot for nation building, but yet, in nation building, to learn to appreciate the experiences, the diverse experiences, and apply them. You don't have to be in each position, but you can learn from each one who has done wonderful work. I will not take much of your time, and I do hope that the present India and the future India would come together with effort of all of us, and that their efforts, their vision, and all of us together can build a stronger, sustainable India. Thank you very much.